So yeah, Jersey National Park, it's been through quite a surprisingly long evolution, and I'm just going to take you back through some of the history to say how we got here. I'm currently, I work for the National Park for 10 hours a week, and I'm the only employee, so we haven't actually achieved a huge amount yet, but I want to tell you some of the things that we would like to do in the future. We are the Jersey National Park Limited. We're a company limited by guarantee. We're headquartered here at the Francis Lesueur Centre, which is a beautiful, let's call it a sustainable building in the west part of the island. And for me personally, it's been a really interesting journey because when I went back to Jersey in 1995, and I saw this great job in the local paper for countryside manager, and I applied and I got my first job with the government of Jersey, and I was based here for 7 years until they dragged us out to our Davis Farm, where the Environment Department currently are. So it's really nice for me personally, as I say, to be back here. Jersey National Park Limited is, as I say, it's a company with 10 non-executive directors. It's all voluntary, but the directors represent some of Jersey's largest natural history and heritage organisations. So the National Trust for Jersey represented, Jersey Heritage Trust, which is a big organisation that looks after all our forts and castles and a lot of heritage buildings. The Société Jersey are represented there as well. We also have a representative from Jersey Dairy, so we've gotten into the dairy farming community. We have a representative from the Royal Jersey Horticultural and Agricultural Society as well. So having that farming representation, because national parks are a lot about landscapes, is really, really important. We also have 2 non-voting representatives there, one from the Environment Department of the States of Jersey and another from the Economic Development Department of the States of Jersey, who represents, again, the economic interests of farming in government. So, you know, we feel like we've got a really good board with the opportunity to take things forward. So why National Park? As we know, protected areas worldwide have been at the forefront of nature conservation for many, many years. And certainly in the last 20 odd years, national parks worldwide have increased hugely in size and distribution across the planet. Despite the amount of protected land and designations we have, it's not all particularly rosy. In Jersey, for instance, we've heard about these fantastic marine protected areas that we have, and we now have actually a no-take zone, a very, very small no-take zone at Portlet, but you know, that's a huge, huge step forward for, in my view, for marine conservation in Jersey. We have sites of special interest, which kind of approximate to the UK's triple SIs. We have, I have a list here. We have areas of special protection that we can designate, which are temporary areas of protection, for instance, to protect breeding bird colonies, and we can designate these under our wildlife law. We have the Jersey National Park and the protected coastal area, which I'll come to in a minute. We have environmentally sensitive areas, which are a designation under our sort of planning policy. We have Ramsar sites, a fantastic international designation. We have non-designated nature reserves, so the National Trust for Jersey, for instance, are big landowners. They manage all their land for nature conservation and enable public access. And we have a whole load of parks around the island as well, public parks, including the town parks. The legislation actually covering the town parks in Jersey is so good that we've actually adopted that to protect our SSIs, because it's much better protection than the SSI legislation. So, you know, that's just Jersey. We have this plethora of different designations and protections on land. But despite that, of course, we have this huge problem worldwide with the biodiversity crisis. So it seems really the more we do, the worse it's all getting. And I wonder really why that's happening. Jersey National Park, as I say, goes back quite a long time in sort of Jersey policy terms. It started here down in the west coast of Jersey. This is an area of land called Pinel de Morville. It's a non-designated nature reserve. Its early evolution is glacial maximum. 20,000 years ago, the high tide mark was probably a couple of kilometres further out here as the ice sheets retreated and sea level rose. That pushed sand and wind-blown sand has formed this amazing landscape of sand dunes, a lot of which has been turned over to agriculture now, and this very large nature reserve that is managed for nature conservation. As I say, it has no particular designation, except at the moment it is incorporated in the Jersey National Park, so it has some planning protections, if you like. Because this whole area, it's a big coastal plain backed by an escarpment. The blown sand is poor quality building sand, but it's largely been Jersey's only source of building sand for centuries. So we've been quarrying sand from here. This left obviously large open pits. After the Second World War, when our economy picked up and we became much more of a consumer society, of course we eyed up these large pits, thinking excellent landfill sites, and this whole landscape, if you like, became pretty much one large landfill. And I can remember as a child sort of being driven along what we call the 5 Mile Road, this road that goes all the way through the west part of the island. And these tips were just open. There's seagulls everywhere feeding on these open tips. There was plastic and rubbish blowing up and down the road. It stank, the whole area. And because they were uncontained pits, all that material was leaching out onto the beach, and the beach was stained red and orange and green from all the leachate. It was a terrible, terrible mess. In the early 1960s, it was decided to do some work to clear up the place because tourism was increasing in Jersey, and this is one of the most popular tourist beaches. So in 1961, a survey of the island was commissioned, and pertaining to this area at Pinel de Morville, a plan was developed to improve the area. So that included some really positive things, like the inclusion of all the land as a green zone, which is a sort of planning policy. The designation of a large part of Le Blanche Banque as a future recreation area. Le Blanche Banque is it's a large area of sand dunes, certainly the biggest area of sand dunes in Jersey, and is recognised certainly throughout Northern Europe as one of the best sand dunes ever. It is fantastic, it's really rich in plant life, superb for invertebrates, but of course in the 1960s it was pretty much unproductive wasteland, so let's turn it into a go-kart track and a new golf course. Sadly, the golf course did get extended, but luckily the car track was never relocated there. Obviously it's wasteland, so you plant a lot of trees on it and lose all that fantastic sand dune biodiversity grassland. The car parks were actually constructed, which, as it turns out, was a really positive step later on in the story. And this huge area in the north end of the bay was designated for residential development. And this residential development was enormous. There was included a primary school, I think it was. And that would have certainly changed the atmosphere of St Wan's Bay forever if these things had been taken forward. A little later on, let's try and get these dates right. So that was 1963. In 1966, a working party was created to have a look at these plans. Nothing happened for another 10 years until 1974, when another survey of St Wan's Bay was carried out by the States of Jersey. By 1974, I think nature conservation moved on a little bit from the 1960s, and so they rescinded some of the proposals that hadn't been carried out, and decided that this very special landscape should become a sort of a protected area in planning designation. And it's very interesting that, you know, even back here in 1974, we're talking about this might be thought as a small but important national park, Le Parc de Miel. So that's really the first time that a national park in Jersey terms was ever spoken about. Because of these drivers to protect the area, it was realised that you know, that it was still being used as landfill at this time. But this report really stimulated some work to clear up the area. Some materials were removed. We built an incinerator by then, so burnable materials were removed out of the landfill and incinerated. The rest was landscaped. Most of the rubbish was buried, and it's still down there. Cars, buses, and name it, still there under the sand. But it was a really good restoration project, if you like, and it won a Civic Trust Award in 1986. It won a Civic Trust Award for the result. It's really a really nice quasi sand dune type nature reserve there. In order to manage this new area that had been created, two people were appointed through the planning department, called the Island Development Committee back then. Two names some of you may have heard of, Mike Ronwell and Mike Freeman, were appointed to manage this area that had just been established. And those two people are really the start of this fantastic Jersey Environment Department that we're so well represented here today. So the Jersey National Park, as it stands, was created by through policy in the Jersey Island Plan in 2011. The Jersey Island Plan is probably our most important policy document that directs development in Jersey, essentially. It's quite wide-ranging. It talks about mineral resource use, housing, and all sorts of other things as well. But so it's basically a land use policy document. The national park itself was created pretty much exactly like the Marine Spatial Plan was created not. So in the run-up to the Island Plan, we produce a new Island Plan every 10 to 12 years. In the run-up to it, there's an amount of research. The minister at the time, Freddie Cohen, said, I want a national park. So the planners drew some lines on a map to create an outline for a national park. These lines that you see here pretty much follow roads, field boundaries, anything that you can recognise as a feature on a map. So it pays no regard whatsoever to biomes or habitat types or anything like that. Nonetheless, it was accepted and it became a designated in policy national park in 2011. It was once it was designated, the Environment Department created a management plan for the site through quite a lot of public consultation, must be said, and it was set up with two main purposes: for nature conservation and one for public enjoyment. Coming forward to last year, we obliged by law to create a new island plan I think it's every 12 years we need to law. And we kind of run out of time to draft a full island plan. So the idea was to draft a bridging island plan, which would be in place for 3 years. And during that 3 years, that's time to research the new sort of full-scale island plan. The proposals during the consultation for the Bridging Island Plan were to extend the boundary of the national park quite extensively in some areas in order to overcome this problem of following indeterminate lines on maps and field boundaries, to try and include some idea of sort of landscape and habitat conservation within the national park. But there was huge uproar, particularly from the farming community, who were really concerned about national park status, thinking it's going to constrain what they can do with their land, thinking there'd be hordes of people walking willy-nilly all over the fields. Public access was a particular issue with the designation. So what we ended up with, unfortunately, is two areas designated in policy. One is the Coastal National Park, which is the sort of hatched area. Oh, yes, I've got one of these pointy things. The hatched area, and something called the protected coastal area, which is this area blocked out in blue, green. I've got the same problems with blue. So whilst this is a really positive step, of course, because the Coastal National Park, sorry, I should have mentioned, it was designated originally as the Coastal National Park, now it's become the Jersey National Park. But the fact that the boundary was extended, as I say, is a really positive thing. But because it was extended into a new designation, the protected coastal area, it does mean that whilst that protected coastal area is protected through planning constraints, there's no incentive, if you like, for positive management. The national park itself, we hope, will become a much more inclusive body, and we hope to position ourselves not as doers as much, and obviously I can only do so much in 10 hours a week and I'm the only employee, but we are in a really good position to facilitate other people's already existing work within the national park. And unfortunately, that means we're really constrained as to what we can do within the protected coastal area. One of the really positive outcomes, in my view, of this last iteration of the island plan is the idea of creating a green infrastructure and network strategy. And of course, what that means is trying to join up some of the protected areas that we have around the island, some of the nature reserves that are already managed extremely well, through developing habitat corridors, stepping stone habitats across the landscape to enable dispersal of wildlife and population outbreeding and all the rest of those wonderful things that a green infrastructure network would provide. It also, of course, enables us to bring more opportunities for nature in the urban environment, for instance, which positively enhances people's lives as well as enables nature conservation within the urban environment. Thank you. The national park designation itself and the protected coastal area designation continues to fail on a number of reasons. This is another map from the Bridging Island Plan, and you can see we have a whole series of geological sites of special interest, ecological sites of special interest, this amazing environmentally sensitive area. We've got these Ramsar sites, we've got marine protected areas, and wouldn't it be wonderful if we could actually link those up in policy and get them interacting and working together, positively managed, as I say, for nature conservation, but also for that public enjoyment of these fantastic areas. So these bits in the middle of the island, for instance, are our interior woodland valleys, which remain largely completely unprotected, but they are some of the most well-used areas for recreation for the general public, for instance. And again, there's work being done by the Environment Department on how we do link up some of these disparate habitats across the island. So this was a piece of work which not only identified the protected areas that we currently have, but looked at permeability of the landscape to try and link them up for the introduction of habitat corridors and stepping stone habitats, which we could do beautifully within the national park if we had that opportunity to do so with an extended boundary designation. We see a huge opportunity on the north coast of Jersey. As this is looking west on the north coast, and all that brown stuff that you can see there is just dense bracken beds. This whole area used to be grazed, certainly pre-Second World War. There'd have been sheep and cattle all the way over here. there's already fantastic work done. There's nature reserves being managed here. There's a really good collaborative project called Birds on the Edge, which is Jersey Zoo, the Environment Department, the National Trust of Jersey collaborating on management for seabirds and the improvement of these degraded habitats all the way along the north coast. But again, we feel that the Jersey National Park is perfectly positioned to facilitate closer collaboration between all these different parties who are already working so hard for nature conservation. So what we would like to achieve, just quickly, is to increase biodiversity on the north coast through better habitat management. We want to improve our governance so we can provide better policy for the national park around biodiversity and climate change. We want to work with Jersey Heritage Trust to promote the Jersey Island Geopark designation, which again would fit in so well with some of the work that's being done in the Isle of Wight. We'd like to establish this green infrastructure network, do more to work with the Environment Department on public interpretation, try to develop better public access, work with our marine colleagues, because we have this huge intertidal area which has massive opportunities, I think, for better nature conservation. And as I say, generally implement and facilitate better cooperation between the fantastic work that's already going on at the moment. Thank you.